What is the most terrifying fact about our universe or world? Story 1. Every once in a while, our sun just emits a solar flare, big enough to end civilization. In 1859, we had one hit the Earth, powerful enough that the telegraph system became self-powered for a while before burning itself out. Fortunately, at that time, that was pretty much the extent of our electrical infrastructure, so the damage didn't do too much to civilization. If one hit today without any warning, every system on long spans of wire would be fried. We'd lose a massive amount of infrastructure. No refrigeration for food distribution, large chunks of communication infrastructure gone, massive amounts of manufacturing capacity gone. Pretty much every aspect of life would be affected. And without that infrastructure, we almost certainly don't have the capacity to rebuild the infrastructure before people start starving to death. And once people start starving, things are likely to go downhill pretty quickly. You might be wondering, what are the odds that we'll ever see another solar storm that large? And the answer is that we already have. On July 23rd of 2012, a similarly sized solar flare missed the Earth by 9 days. In the last few decades, we've added in some early warning systems and protocols to give us a chance of surviving. Basically, we'll get about 45 minutes warning to disconnect as much of the electrical grid as we can, then hope enough of it survives. Story 2. What's outside the universe? If it's always expanding, what is it expanding into? Anytime I think about this for too long, it reminds me about how little I understand about the existence of anything, and it scares me. Nope, that's not scary. It's a monkey brain problem. You cannot use intuitive expectations much above or below the scale which we inhabit. It's a natural assumption, of course, because we're monkeys, but it's still wrong-headed. There is no outside the universe. It's not expanding into anything, and you're never going to hear an answer that satisfies your desire for an intuitive understanding of that fact, because you didn't evolve to have to deal with those circumstances in a practical way. Story 3, I've posted this before, but I think about it a lot. Our civilization is so early. The universe is expected to continue star formation for 100 trillion years. We exist 13.7 billion years after the Big Bang. That's 0.014% of the total habitable time of our universe. If the Big Bang was January 1st, 1900, and star formation ends on January 1st, 2000, then it's currently January 6th, 1900. What are the chances of that? Why do we exist now, so early, instead of any other point in the rest of time? Story 4. The fact that conscious and intelligent life exists at all. When you look at the fundamental matter that makes up every object in the universe, everything is made up of atoms, molecules, and certain combinations of periodic elements. These in themselves are not living matter. So at what point did a certain combination of these things become a conscious life form? And what about an actual self-aware, intelligent life form, like a human, as opposed to simpler bacteria? We are still made of the same matter as objects that are not considered alive. So where does consciousness come from? The evolution of our brains, all things considered, is really interesting. Story 5. You are going to die. No matter how much technology improves, you will never be one of the rich neo-feudal lords who can afford to live forever. If it makes anyone feel better, your matter is going to go on. You'll die, decompose, become nutrients for the world, and be utilized again and again in different ways for millions of years. And billions of years from now, when the sun scorches the earth and consumes it, we will become part of the sun or cosmic dust floating through the universe forever. We've been here long before we became a human, and we will be here long after our role of being human ends. Story 6. Not necessarily facts, but theories that could be proven fact. Higher dimensional beings. Visualize if there was a 2D person. If you gaze at them in a specific way, they can't see you. All you have to do is look from a top view, and they would not know you are there, and they would never know. Living their life as 2D, they would never be capable of comprehending how something could be viewed down on them. Now, visualize a 4D person. They could be observing you from a four-dimensional angle, an angle that you will never comprehend. They could be right alongside you, but you would not know, and you would never know. Just as we could interact with the 2D person, the 4D person could interact with us. But as long as they do not want us to, we could never interrelate with them, or not even know of them. Fermi paradox. Let's say there is an ant hill in the middle of the forest, and right next to the ant hill, we are constructing a 10-lane superhighway. And the question is, would the ants be capable of comprehending what a 10-lane superhighway is? Would the ants be capable of comprehending the technology and the purposes of the beings constructing the highway next to them? So, it is not that we cannot pick up the signals from Planet X using our technology. It is that we cannot even understand what the beings from Planet X are or what they are trying to do. It is so beyond us that even if they actually wanted to educate us, it would be like trying to teach ants about the internet. When Pizarro entered Peru, did he stop for a while at an anthill to attempt to communicate? Was he generous, trying to help the ants in the anthill? Did he become aggressive and slow his original mission down in order to smash the anthill apart? Or was the anthill of complete and utter and eternal insignificance to Pizarro? That might be our condition here. Sixth mass extinction. We are at present living through what many biologists consider to be the sixth mass extinction that the world has ever experienced. This is going to be a stimulating puzzle for the species that comes after us. It was not until around the year 1800 that humanity touched a population of 1 billion after thousands and thousands of years. In the 215 years since then, the world population has increased to approximately 2 billion. That exponential growth has very big and long-lasting negative effects on our planet, and will continue to do so until we reach carrying capacity or die off. Story 7. If we statistically understood how close we were to dying just about every time we did anything, we'd likely not do anything. My cousin died in a senseless car accident this summer. He was on his way to work, down a country road not all that well traveled, and one he's driven for the better part of half a century. Some assertion was behind a van in the other lane and didn't care he was in a no passing zone. He broke the speed limit and went to pass, pulled out right in front of my cousin, and had a head on collision, killing him instantly. After his death, I just kept thinking about how specific the scenario had to be. If he'd needed to piss or had a second bowl of cereal, if he'd dropped his keys or checked the mail that one last time, he'd have missed being in that spot at that specific time. So many things had to go just exactly right for him to die in that scenario, it's improbable as all. And yet they did. Story 8. You know how rooms and even elevators have a maximum capacity? Well, scientists calculated the maximum capacity of Earth, and it's 10 billion. We're at 8 billion. This is just incredibly misleading. There isn't a known maximum limit on our planet due to our advancements in resource consumption. Eventually, there might be one, but the limit 200 years ago was drastically smaller than what it is today, which is smaller than what it will be in 50 years. Malthusian theory or cornucopian theory, and the rest of them, are just what they are. Theories because we really don't know if there is a limit, let alone if we would ever actually hit one on a grand scale of an entire planet. Story 9. Our universe is expanding continuously every second, and if someone manages to travel out of the Milky Way, the universe's expansion will drive away the Milky Way from that person, and it will be impossible to go anywhere. Because the rate at which the universe is expanding is way, way faster than the speed of any spaceship humans will ever be able to build. So the person will be stuck in empty space forever and will never be found. And even if the person is traveling his or her entire life, the person will never see anything but emptiness and will never reach anything. Pretty dark and creepy. That expansion is an horizon effect. We see a straight line which is an horizon. In fact, it's very, very, very SL curved, which shows that common senses can often be wrong. We just can't see the curvature, can we? Very likely it's an illusion like a flat earth. That's the horizon fallacy in a nutshell. One favorite Bible verse is that when Jeshua ben Yosef was taken by Satan to the highest mountain on the earth, it's not said how he did that, or if it was walking or teleportations, by some magical means, grin, from which it was written, they could see all the kingdoms of the earth. Satan said he'd give Jeshua all of those, if he'd bow down to worship him. Said Jeshua, Satan, thou great liar, the earth is a sphere, and we cannot see all of the earth from a mountain, no matter how high it is. Satan, get thee behind me. Now why was that flat earth verse missed for what it was? Grin. Story 10. It requires ignorance. Everything is subjective, or as some people would therefore conclude, false. It's not just morals and values, or pain and happiness, or good and evil. Spirit, soul, consciousness, cause and effect, and truth itself doesn't exist outside of ourselves, because they're all our own creation. Anyone who can only believe in things which are objectively and universally true will lose all faith in the world. Those who try to look at life from a perspective outside of life will end up in nihilism. It's not just time. In a million years, nobody will care or sighs, we're only a speck of dust. But any perspective outside of ourselves, that is to say, objective, will render everything which exists useless because all valuing and judging is human. Story 11, yeah. I think it would have to be a toss up between CMEs, as mentioned below, and asteroids with near Earth orbits. Wouldn't take but a nudge at the wrong time to put them on a collision course. Even without such a nudge, statistically, it's not a question of if we are going to get clobbered by one big enough to end us, or most of us, but when. As for our world, most people think of supervolcanoes, and they are another ticking time bomb, but so are gigantic, unstable sediment buildups under the ocean, which could collapse, triggering colossal mega tsunamis. Story 12, outer space is sort of infinite. We live in one solar system, and scientists have only so far discovered about 500 others, all of which we do not possess the technology to reach, to a certain extent. However, there could be hundreds of billions of other solar systems out there. To put that into perspective, our one solar system only has 8 planets in it, and only one of which, we know for a fact, is inhabited by intelligent life, Earth. If there are billions of other solar systems out there, then there very well could be other planets in those solar systems, like Earth, that are also inhabited by intelligent life. Perhaps humans or something else entirely that have developed their own societies, technology, etc. But we don't know. Because as intelligent as we are, we have yet to discover a means to reach out to those solar systems. Story 13. For me, it's gamma ray bursts. Scientists are not certain what causes them, but the most probable theory for the most powerful of the bursts is that they come from the collapse of the core of a rapidly spinning star into a black hole, which then begins to consume the rest of the star. This causes jets of extremely high energy rays to be emitted from the poles of the black hole. The black hole could be thousands of light years away from Earth. It won't matter. If the pole is pointed in our direction, we're in a bit of a pickle. Apparently, in 2012, researchers found evidence that Earth had been hit by a blast of radiation in the 8th century. There is debate over what caused it, but a short gamma ray burst was fully consistent with their findings. Given the energy observed, they concluded that the burst came from 3,000 to 12,000 light years away. If it happened once. Story 14. The fact that our solar system will die out and the human race will be non-existent. It sounds crazy, and it is. So I will explain every understandable and not understandable part. Our sun, just like all stars, will become a supernova after stages of being a white dwarf, then a black dwarf, I think, and it'll become big enough to blow up. Since the sun is the closest star to us, it'll affect human nature, first animals. But you might be thinking, but the sun is a few 100 million miles from us, which in fact isn't too far considering our universe. Our universe has infinite space, 2 sextillions, 2 quintillions, 2 quadrillions, 2 trillions, 2 billions, 2 millions of infinite space. So taking infinite versus a few 100 million s, it doesn't stand a chance. We also have the perfect ratio of space between all of our planets, between our planet and the sun, so the sun will blow up into us, and it will also crash into Mercury, Venus, and Mars too, yet the outer planets are safe. Maybe we can all move to either Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, or Neptune someday. But all jokes aside, this is a horrifying event. But you don't need to worry, it will happen in a few 100 billion years. So that's my most terrifying. Story 15. The most merciful thing in the world, I think, is the inability of the human mind to correlate all its contents. We live on a placid island of ignorance in the midst of black seas of infinity. And it was not meant that we should voyage far. The sciences, each straining in its own direction, have hitherto harmed us little. But someday the piecing together of dissociated knowledge will open up such terrifying vistas of reality, and of our frightful position therein, that we shall either go mad from the revelation, or flee from the deadly light into the peace and safety of a new dark age. H.P. Lovecraft. Story 16, it's a pain in the butt to get back from. Yeah, going into space on a rocket and floating around in zero-G is probably awesome, but in order to get back to Earth alive from orbit, you have to hit a very narrow window of re-entry. And decelerating from orbital speed through the atmosphere is basically 4 minutes of your spaceship being on fire, buffeted by 9 Gs, as you wonder if you're going to be ripped apart and explode at 10,000 miles an hour, or bounce back into space and never get back. Other than that, I'm sure it's just fine. Story 17. The concept of strange quarks and their possible effects on the universe are pretty freaky. Think like false vacuum decay, but instead of the universe just finding itself in a new, lower energy state, it's a single particle, or perhaps a series of particles, that have broken free from the inside of a neutron star, most likely after a collision with another neutron star, hurtling at light speed across the universe, and anything that it comes into contact with gets turned into strange matter. In the process of doing so, whatever regular matter the strange quarks come into contact with becomes strange matter, turning everything around it into strange matter as well, in an unstoppable, cascading event. And then the strange quark that started the whole thing would just continue on its merry way, contacting new regular matter and changing it to strange matter in turn. A single one of these strange quarks can be heading for Earth at any given moment, and currently, we would have no way to know what's happening until the Earth started changing into strange matter. The event might happen so quickly that we may not ever know. It'll just happen, and we're gone. Story 18. When people say that the universe is expanding, you can think of it as the distance between all things is increasing at an accelerating rate. This expansion is not so noticeable at our human scale, but it is clearly observable when looking at regions of space that are extremely far away, like faraway galaxies. Essentially, the farther away two things are, the faster they seem to be moving away from each other. In fact, without breaking any known laws of the universe, regions of space are being expanded away from each other at a rate that outruns the speed of light. All that is to say, there are places in the universe that are just straight up physically impossible to reach or even see from Earth, even with unlimited time, energy, and light speed travel. Story 19, a gamma ray burst within like 50 light years, or maybe even hundreds of light years, don't remember, could hit the Earth at any moment and completely annihilate our ozone layer, which would burn us alive from solar radiation. Luckily, the odds of this happening are incredibly low. Both the distance and odds of it aiming at Earth are so insane that the odds of it happening are near zero. And you know what they say, whatever can happen will happen at some point in space and time. This is actually believed to be what caused the first known mass extinction. Story 20. Just the mind-boggling size freaks me out sometimes. All of the planets of the solar system can fit between the orbit of Earth and the Moon with about 5,000 miles to spare. The distance between Earth and the Sun is about 390 times larger than the distance between Earth and the Moon. The distance from the Sun to the Oort cloud, outer edge of the solar system, is about 1,000 times larger than the distance between Earth and the Sun. To get to the outer edge of the Oort cloud, you have to travel that distance 10 times. And guess what? If you do all that traveling, you've gone a whopping 15% of 1 light year, which means only 24 more of those trips, and you've finally reached our closest neighbor, Alpha Centauri. I hope you brought a good book. Story 21. If black holes don't scare you, then nothing about the universe is going to. Although black holes are pretty damn scary if you're near one, I feel like a lot of the fear is simply from misconceptions. Please correct if I'm wrong, I'm not a physicist. People often believe that black holes simply sucks up everything around them and destroy everything. While this is partly true, the truth is that if you were, let's say, 10,000 kilometers from the center of a planet that is composed of gas, you would experience the same gravitational attraction if that gas was compressed into a black hole. For example, if the sun became a black hole, all the planets would still orbit as they normally do. Density doesn't matter. Distance from the center and mass matter. Story 22. Magnetars. Magnetars have powerful magnetic fields that emit huge amounts of high-energy electromagnetic radiation. Earth has already been hit with some minor blasts, but nothing damaging. But this blast came from around 50,000 light years away, and the closest magnetar to Earth is only 9,000 light years. The energy density of a magnetar's magnetic field is approximately as much energy as the sun imparts onto Earth every year, per cubic meter. It's a magnetic field with an energy density 1,000 times greater than the mass energy density of lead. People aren't usually aware that magnetic fields can be dangerous at high enough energies. These ones are lethal out to about 1,000 kilometers because they mess with the dipoles of the water molecules that make up most of your body. GRBs are still my favorite too, though. Being visible to the naked eye from literally the other side of the universe is pretty impressive. Most people can't even see the Milky Way because of light pollution. Story 23, black holes. They literally gave me nightmares. I remember when I got my first science textbook back in fourth grade, and when I was skimming through, I came across our solar system. I became so obsessed with space from that point on that even today it's my dream to go aboard the International Space Station and just float around. Anyway, so I'm finished reading about our solar system, and I move on to the next page where it begins to talk about black holes in great detail. For about 2 weeks after reading about them, I would have nightmares about a black hole showing up undiscovered by NASA and proceeding to swallow the Earth. Story 24, a vacuum metastability event. As I understand it, this is QFT stuff, so what the hell do I know? It's the idea that our universe, or a pocket of space, appears to have the lowest possible energy state. But in reality, it's not the lowest possible. A metastability event is one where some condition is reached where there is now a lower energy state, and that changes how particles react on a basic level. This effect spreads out from its source at nearly the speed of light, fundamentally changing the universe as it goes. Forget the basic chemistry that our bodies work on, the particles wouldn't even exist in their current form anymore. Something else would appear in its wake. I guess you could take some comfort in leaving a corpse that is all new sorts of particles that nobody has ever seen before. Not that any of us would be around to study this new existence, having all been immediately killed by the lack of the physics we need to exist. Story 25, the fact that it's so freaking close. Gravity, a force we don't even really understand, is the only thing holding on a thin layer of air, shielding the entire planet from a vast vacuum of nothingness. Have you ever tried to hold on to air? It's hard to do. Even the Earth doesn't do it perfectly. A little bit bleeds off here and there. Too much bleeds off, and we're Mars. But that's not the scary part. All you have to do is swim up a few dozen miles if you could. And suddenly there's nothing but you and 250,000 miles of emptiness until you hit the moon. At normal human pace, that's like 10 years of drifting through absolutely nothing until you get there. And if you miss that, you just keep drifting and you'll be drifting for the rest of your life. To me, the scary thing isn't what's in the universe, it's how much there isn't.